Umlernen Ablat Gemara. We are up to today Daf Chavva Amar Alu and Sechta Rosh Hashana, and now we're going back to the subject at hand, Rosh Hashana, and we're going to talk about the shofar. So first, we're going to talk about what kind of material or what kind of shofar we should use, what kind of horn. So the Mishnah says, Kol HaShofars Kshedim. Any shofar from any animal is kosher. Chutz mishal para. The only animals that you cannot use is from a para, from a cow. Why not? The pnei shehu keren. It's known as not as a shofar, but as a keren. And we know when it comes to shofar, it has to be dafka a shofar. How do we know that? Because it says by Yovel, v'havartem shofar trua, and we are going to make a gzer shava between Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur to learn out how many keys we have and how many truths we need to know that. So therefore, we're also going to compare the kind of instrument you're going to use. And there it uses the word shofar, so therefore it has to be a shofar and not from a para. Rabbi Yesi disagrees. Rabbi Yesi, kol ha-shofars nikru keren. The keren is a generic term that includes all the shofars. Shenemar, it says, b'msheich b'keren hayevel. It says in the pasuk over there that when you stretch out and you draw out the keren of the Yevel we'll see is a male ram, and therefore we see clearly we're talking about a ram and we're talking about the horn of a ram and we're calling it a keren. So therefore, the word keren is just like a shofar and it's all right. So even though by a plural we call it a keren, so what? All shofars are called kerens. Okay, says the Gemara further. Rabbi Yisrael is a very strong proof, an ironclad proof that all shofars are known as keren. He says you're right, but Abon kol ha-shofars ikru shofar v'ikru keren. A shofar generally can be either referred to as a shofar or as a keren. But the para, when it comes to the cow, keren ikru, shofar la ikru. When it comes to the cow, it's only referred to as keren. We never find the expression of shofar by a cow. The chsiv, because it says there regarding Yosef, the choir shoyed hadar loy, and to talk about a b'shor, and we say that the b'choir, the firstborn of a shoyr, hadar loy, is beautiful to it. The karne, the aim karna, and he has the horns of the aim, and the horns of a shoyr are the horns of a aim. What word does he use? Not shofar, but he uses the word keren. Says the Gemara, but Rabbi Yossi, well, how's Rabbi Yossi respond to that? You never find the word shofar by para. I'll tell you the Bernarika shofar. No, we find also by para shofar. Where? It says in Pasuk, a dollar of Melch said, "V'ztitav laHashem." I wanted my prayers to be accepted by the Eibishter better than shor par, better than a shor par. Now a shor is a cow and a par is like a bull, and the difference between a shor and a par is as soon as an animal is born, a cow is born, it's called a shor. But it's not called a par until it's grown up, until it's 3 years old. And yet it says in the pasuk here, I want it to be better than a shor par. How can you put both together? So he said, read the two words together, as if it says shoy far. What do you mean? You better than a shor, better than a par? Elamai shor par, me shofar. As if it says, from the shofar that you blew from the par. I want that my tefillah should be more acceptable than even that. So we see clearly that a par is also referred to as shofar, at least with derech remes in the hint. Rabbanon, what do they do with the word shor par taka? Rabbanon, how are they going to learn? What do they learn from it? They use it for something totally different. That David HaMelech's prayer was Rav Masna. Like Rav Masna said, what did Rav Masna say? The Omar Rav Masna, my shor par. How can be a shor in a par? Shu godul kipar. Talking about creation. If you remember, we learned creation that everything in creation was b'tzivyoin and nivru, was created if it's a full glory. So even though it was only a day old, the shor when it was created, it was not a 1 day old shor. It was actually a 3-year-old par on the first day. So that's what I mean. And then Adam Rishi broke abonis, and I want that my tefillah should be even more acceptable than that. That's what David Melech was saying. So Mishar par, from this shor, it was only a day old, that looked like a par, it was 3 years old. I want that my tefillah should be better than that. Nothing to do with shofar. So that's a machlekes. According to Chachamim, you cannot use the horn of a para because it's not called a shofar, it's called a keren. According to you can use any particular shofar. It doesn't matter from any animal. The Gemara says, Ula says, I'll give you a different explanation why they're arguing about a para. Nothing to do with whether it's called a shofar or whether it's not. It has to do with something totally different. And that is the concept that the prosecutor cannot become the advocate. Ein keteger nasa sneger. The biggest prosecutor against the Eden is the biggest stain that we have is the Egel Hazav. how the gold enticed the people to cause them to sin. So to use gold to unravel that sin, and Ketegen as it brings them a terrible reminder. At the same time, while you're advocating, it reminds the Eibush also of our sin. And the same thing applies to the para, that they made an egel hazov. Says the Gemara, like Reb Chizda, Amar Ula, Amar Hain Tayin Rabban, Reb Chizda. Amar Reb Chizda said, why on Yom Kippur doesn't the Kohen Gadol enter with gold investments? Why does he have to go with those white linen clothes? Lava Davoida, if you know why, ain't Katega Nasas Nega, the gold which enticed us, it causes us to sin, cannot then later become our advocate on Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara, no, but you could dampar. On Yom Kippur, they use the blood of a par, they sprinkle it against the brachas and everything else. We do use the par for atonement. Says the Gemara, that's different. When you look at the blood, you don't really see, you don't think about its source. You think about the blood itself. So therefore, it's not really a reminder of the sin that we committed with the par. Mashenkin over here, we're talking about the gold itself, the gold vestments, and the same thing applies to the shofar. Says the Gemara, what about the aron, which is inside the Kohen Kedoshim, has made out of gold, the kapoides, and the krug? So we say chayta bal Yaakov kamin. We're talking about when is it a problem when you're trying to bring a carbon, you're trying to appease, and at the same time you're reminding the Eibush of the sin we committed. But the aron itself is not a kapara, is not a carbon, so therefore it doesn't matter. On the contrary, it should be made out of gold. Says the Gemara, okay, what about Ika? There is the kaf and the machte. You have over here the kaf and the ladle, and the machte and the frying pan. You have them; they're made out of gold, and they're brought into Yom Kippur and that's like a carbon. Yes, made out of gold. So your answer is we're saying that the Kohen should not beautify himself wearing gold clothes, and at the same time, remind and asking for atonement, remind the Eibush of the sin. And this is not a question of beautifying yourself, it's just a kalim. You're using utensils for activity. Okay, says the Gemara, but I still have a problem. Big days on the chutz. Doesn't the Kohen Gadol wear the golden clothes on the outside? Okay, he doesn't wear it on the inside, he wears it on the outside. So he says, when is it a problem with the coming in? It's only a problem when it's inside your mamish, more intimate with the Eibush, and then you remind the Eibush of the sin that you did as well. So you want to ask a question of shofar, so what's the deal then? Big deal with the shofar? Shofar you blow on the outside, so why can't it be made out of a para? So what if it reminds the Eibush it's outside? So we answer, this is different. What's the purpose of the shofar? To remind the Eibush that what do you call it, of the Akedah Yitzchak. It's like the big Kohen walking in, doing the avodah inside. So at the same time, we're going out of our way to remind the Eibush of our good virtues. At the same time, we're reminding the Eibush of some of our bad virtues. That doesn't make sense. That's why we don't blow shofar from a par on Rosh Hashana. Says the Gemara, but our Mishnah doesn't say that. Well, our Mishnah clearly says the problem is that it's known as keren, not a shofar. Says the Gemara, our Mishnah meant two things. Chada, first of all, is the reason we just said ein katega. Chada is the reason we just said keren. Chada, he's saying one thing and another thing. Chada, first of all, the ein katega nasas nega, which is not even mentioned in the Mishnah. Well, and furthermore, with neshu keren, and the other one, more pedantic, is the fact that it's known as keren, not as shofar. No, how's Rabbi Yossi going to respond to that? He's not perturbed. He's not worried about Enke taking out snake, even though I agree that the Kohen Gadol shouldn't wear gold vestments instead of Torah. And the reason you're correct. But now when it comes to shofar, why? Because the fact is the shofar is blown outside. And when is it a problem? Only when it's indoors. And this cheshbon that you're making because it's there to remind the Eibush that it's considered as if it's indoors, I don't accept that. Rabbi Yossi, when is that a problem? Only when you're inside. But where you belong shofar, the outside. The other issue you have, if Neshu Keren, that the horn of a parah is not known as shofar, but known as a Keren. Kol ha-shofar nami ikar Keren. All the shofars go by the name of Keren. You tell me that a parah is never called a shofar. I brought you that pasuk shofar. So we're in Chavav Amal, about 5-6 lines above the middle white lines. We're trying to work out why. What's the crux of the argument? You can use the horn of an ox, of a cow. Abai is the third reason. So far we had one is whether it's called a keren or a shofar. Second one is the horn of a parah is ein katega nasas nega, reminds the Eibush of the egel hazov. Comes along by and gives a third reason. You know what the reason of the rabbanon is? Shofar amarachmana in singular. It has to be a single shofar. But l'shnayim v'shleisha shofars, not 2 and not 3. So what's the problem? The parah, the way the horn grows by a product, because it grows layers upon layers. So each layer is like another shofar. Therefore, mischazi, it appears kishnayim v'shleisha shofars. So therefore, it looks like it is 2 or 3 shofars. Says the Gemara. So what's Rabbi Yossi going to say? And before we get to that even, but our Mishnah doesn't say that. The same question we asked before on Ula. Tana Mipneishu Kedin Kama. The Tana clearly says the only issue at hand is whether it's called Kedin or Shofar. So we answer Chada v'Oikama. The Mishnah is saying one thing, but it's another thing. Chada, first of all, the Shofar Echad one of Shnayim Shofar, one, not 2 or 3. Furthermore, Mipneishu Kedin, it's Kedin. But Rabbi Yossi will tell you the Ka'amah that you say Shofar Echad Rachman L'Shnayim Shofar is that you say. And what's Rabbi Yossi going to answer back? Your argument is that the horn, the way it grows by para, grows in layers, so therefore it's more than one Shofar. Kivon de Mechabri Ahadodi, because they're all attached to each other. Chadu is considered one. It doesn't matter that appearances are different. In fact, it's one. And the other issue you brought up, the Ka'amah you mentioned, Neishu Keren, the issue that the horn of a shofar is called Keren, you should know that Kol HaShofars Namini Ikru Keren, that all the shofars also are called Keren, like the Mishnah says, B'Msheich B'Keren HaYevel. Okay, it says more further. So we use that pasuk to say B'Msheich B'Keren HaYevel. Yevel is a male ram. And yet the Torah calls it Keren. So that's what your proof is, that all the horns of all the animals are known as Keren. So therefore, a par is not singled out. Says the Gemara, how do you know the word Yovel means a male ram? Says the Gemara, my mashma, how do you know the Hayovel Lishla Dakru? How do you know the word Yovel means a male ram? The Tanya's Gemara says, I'll tell you how we know. And we're going to bring now a number of instances where we found out the meaning of words from other people. Says, when I went to the Arabian countries, they used to call Dakra, a male lamb, Yovel. And because they're pretty primitive and whatever they spoke today went for years back from years. So therefore, I can learn from the language that that's what Yovel means even a long time ago. Just like Reb Chaim Nuss spent a lot of time in the Arabian markets to see weights and everything else. And then he went back to the weights that the Rambam uses and he worked out what they are. Because again, they haven't really moved around and they haven't really changed much in hundreds and hundreds of years. Talking about words that we picked up as we went overseas and we related back to the Torah and Tanakh, there are other examples. The guy who went to this place called Galia, they refer to Lenida Galmuda as someone who's lonely, separated, segregated. My Galmuda, what is the origin of the word Galmuda? Gemula Domibaila. She's separated, segregated from her husband. When I went to Africa, they refer to a ma is a certain coin. They refer to a ma as ksita. They called it ksita. Why do we need to know that? Lifrushe, to be able to explain the pasuk when Yaakov bought from bought Shechem for 100 ksita. What in the world is 100 ksita? 100 ksita is 100 mas. Now lifrushe meya ksita. The rice says meya donkey. It's 106th. A ma is a sixth of the salah, so it's 100 of the sixth. 106. So in other words, ksita and ma are the same thing. Omar Rebbe, now we'll bring other examples. Rebbe said, when I went overseas, they used to use the word for selling, kira. They dropped the mem and they just said kira, selling. And the mind of me, why do we need to know that? The Ferusha, to explain what Yaakov said, Asher Korisi Li. Yosef said to Pare that my father told me that I should bury him in Eretz Yisrael in the cave Asher Korisi Li. Now you could tie Karisli means I dug for myself. When did Yaakov dig for himself? So Karisli means I actually bought for myself. Now what do you mean Yaakov bought the Moshe Pela? Avram bought the Moshe Pela. But what happened was that Yaakov had a spot there and he gave his spot over to Leah, and Esav had the other spot because Esav was the B'chayr. And he bought L'chayra from Esav the B'chayr, and he got, as a result of that, he got Esav's Chalik. So therefore I bought. Maybe that's true. When I went to this place called Kanashaya, they used to refer to a kala as a nymph. Called a nymph. Micro. Which pasuk does that give me some explanation or insight to? It says a pasuk, Yifei Noif. It says this knife is beautiful. The whole world is happy. What's this knife? Knife is a kala. And the kala makes the whole world happy. A tarnagol is called a sechvi when we say in the Damri Hanais la sechvi bina. You gave sechvi wisdom, but sechvi, so sechvi is a tarnagol, a rooster. And why does it? And what do you mean that he gave a sechvi? Amarav Yehuda, Amarav Yibay What is the pasuk that we're referring to here? It says in the pasuk, Mi shos vatuches chachma, who gave to something smooth wisdom, which we're going to say those are the kidneys, which is an allegory. I mean, nasa, who gave to the sechvi bina understanding. Mi shos batuches chachma elu klois. These are the kidneys, which is always used as an analogy for the seed of wisdom, understanding. I mean, nasa la sechvi bina is a tarnagol. Who gave the sechvi understanding the tarnagol? Because he can right away detect when the day is starting, when dawn is beginning. So all these words we figured out only because we heard other places how they used them. So then we came back, we related back to the psukim. So we'll bring a few other examples. And this we had a few places where either Abaya's foster mother or Rebbe's maid who taught them a number of words. Gemara says Levi equal lahu asa. Levi came to a place. Before we get to that, to tell a story about Levi. Levi came to a place. A person came to him to complain. Amale, he said to Levi, I want you to know that kavu planya. That this person, Kavan Plani, that person is a Kavan. And he covered me. We actually had this Gemara of Kavan in the end of Baba Kama. But here the Gemara says he said Kavan Plani, and Levi was embarrassed to ask him, Levi's Tamachach, what does it mean? Lavi and my Kamla know what it means. So also Shah Medrash, he went to the base of Medrash asking, guys, do you know what this word means? A guy came and accused me. He said to me that he's a Kavan. What in the world is a Kavan? Amalach. Amalei said to him, Gazan Amalach. He's telling you that he was stolen from him, that somebody stole from him. It says in the pasuk, Hayikva Odom Elikim. Are you trying to steal from the Eibishter Begoimer? So therefore, we see that's the word. Yikva means stealing or robbing. Says the Gemara. I think Levi made a mistake. Okay, he was embarrassed to ask him what does the word mean. If the person says a word and Levi doesn't know, it's embarrassing. But Levi should have been smart and in a very surreptitious way, he could have figured out what the guy meant. For example, Eva Havoyos would have been me. Hava meaning I would have said to him, how did it happen? The Maikavacha, what did he do to Kavacha? Why did this person do it to you? And a Mela have a Gedina. When you start answering me, I'll figure out what from the context what he's talking about. Why Taka didn't Levi say that? Because he thought the guy did something an avera to him, and he didn't ask those questions. Says the Gemara. They didn't know the word surugin. It says by Megillah that you shouldn't read it. If you read a Megillah with surugin, it's b'diavad, it's all right. They had no idea what surugin means, and we'll find out surugin means pausing. You read, you pause, you read, you pause. Shmuel Amso, the Rebbe, the ones who made a Rebbe, the Chazis, the one that violated Piski. She saw that the rabbis walked in a group at a time, which he found annoying. Amrulu, instead of coming in all in one row, she said to them, Ad Masai Atam Nichnasim, as how much longer are you going to continue entering this Beis Medrash? Sirugin. So that's when they figured out what the word Sirugin means. Lo have a Yodik. In other words, even the maid in Rabbi Yehuda Nassi's house was a big time of the Chacham. The Rabbanim had no idea what the word Chalugos means. It says that the Kohen, Gadol, for the 7 days before Yom Kippur, shouldn't eat any garlic and shouldn't eat any Chalugos. Had no idea what that is. So Yom Echad, it happened one day. The maid of Rebbe, that she saw this person, they come it was separating, is papachina, some kind of a herb. And she said to him, I must have a father. So when are you going to continue spreading around this Chaglug L'Secha? So that's how he knew what it was. Lo have a yodid, Rabbanan did not know. It says in the pasuk in Tehillim. It says initially it says, "My salsala, if you were salsala v'terei mecha, and you will be lifted." What in the word is salsala? I had no idea. So one day Shmuel the Rebbe once heard the maid of Rebbe to have his umrah guy was the person that would come a hapich beside her that was trying to comb and brush his hair, and he was taking the hair below and beneath and picking it up, and so she said to this person, and mosetem misalsel beside her. How much longer can you dig up your hair? So they knew now that the word misalsel means that you should, if you search into the Torah and you turn over and try to find all the secrets of the Torah, but you'll be lifted. So that's how they know what it meant. The Rabbanan don't know the meaning of the following pasuk in Shai as well. It says in the pasuk that what do you call it? It says betata seh, betata hashmit, the tata seh, with tata of destruction. No idea what that meant. Hashmit. What does it mean? What's a tata? Once they made a Rebbe Davi, Amr said to the friend, Shkuli tatisa, take this tati, take this broom, shkuli tati base, and sweep out the entire house. So tata is a broom, and therefore what it meant was that Abish is saying, I would take the broom and destroy and swipe everything out with this broom. They have Yerabon and Rabon, in other words, says to him, Hashlich al Hashem, throw onto the Eibusha Yehavcha, who Yechalkalech, and he will take care of you, he'll give you Parnasa. What in the world is Yehavcha? One day I was going together with this merchant. I was carrying this peckle. He told me, take your package, and he used the word Yavach, and put it on my camel. In other words, what we're saying is, take your whole peckle of panos and throw it to Eibusha, trust the Eibusha that he will take care of you, and then the Eibusha will take care of you. You just have to make the kelim, and the Eibusha will do the rest. Next Mishnah. Now, the big controversy about this next Mishnah, because the Mishnah delineates further. So right now, in the previous Mishnah, we learned, according to Tanakh, you can use any animal's horns except a parah, and Abiyah says only a parah. I mean, even a parah. This Mishnah limits it much further, and to what kind of animal shofar you should use. So is this Mishnah arguing the previous Mishnah, which is what some hold, or is it saying that's technically Mahatayda, you can use any horn? But the Rabbanan came along and said that the Chatchila you should use one of the following horns. It's not arguing; it's just going the next stage, how it evolved. Anyway, so what exactly are they saying here? Shofar Rosh Hashana, the shofar Rosh Hashana should be shel yal, like from a mountain goat, from these roving goats, not from a domestic goat. Pashut, it should be a straight horn. It should be straight, like a trumpet. Number one. So the Tanakh holds that the Rosh Hashana shofar. Now like this. We have in the Torah that throughout the year they used to blow chatzaitzes, trumpets. They had to gather people together. They had to go to war, fast day. They blow trumpets, and alongside the trumpets they also blew shofar. In the times of Beis Hamikdash, when they blew shofar Hashana, alongside the shofar they also had trumpets. The shofar was in the middle, and the trumpets were on the outside. So we're going to make this contrast now. The shofar of Rosh Hashana shel yal should be from a mountain goat. Pashut, it should be straight. Why it should be straight, we'll see in a minute. Upi mitupazov, and it should be coated with gold. We're talking about the Beis Hamikdash shofar. Ushtei chatzotz, and the two trumpets min hatzadim were blown on the side. Shofar marich, the shofar elaborated, the chatzotz is mikatzes, and the trumpets were shorter. Why the shofars were long and the chatzotz we'll soon see. And the Mishnah says, to show that the main mitzvah of Rosh Hashana is to blow shofar. So therefore, the shofar sound outlasted the sound of the trumpets. What about a tainus? When it comes to a tainus, and we learned that they had to blow shofar and they blow the trumpets as well, then there was different. There, we wanted them to use bishal charim. We wanted to use male rams, and kfufin. On a tainus, we want the shofar to be bent like our shofars. Upi and mitzupi kesef. And this time, it should be coated with silver, a step down from Rosh Hashana. So Rosh Hashana should be straight from a wild goat, and on a mountain goat, and on tainus it should be bent and from a ram, and also be coated with silver, not gold. This time the chatzitzes were the most important one. They're in the middle. Shofar mekatzev, chatzitzes mareches. The trumpets were a little longer. Shemitzvahs hayem bechatzitzes, to prove that today the mitzvah is on tainus. The main mitzvah is the trumpets. Shava hayevel Rosh Hashana. What about Yovel? Yovel was similar to Rosh Hashana in the sense that you had to use the same kind of a shofar. So it had to be a straight shofar. And even though the davening on Yovel has nothing to do with Rosh Hashana, Nevertheless, in fact, the whole purpose of the blowing of shofar on Yovel is to declare that the avonim can go back home, that all the properties have to go back to the rightful owners. Totally different purpose than the shofar. Doesn't matter. We have Gzei Shava. We're comparing the two, Rosh Hashana to Yom Kippur, and we learn out through Gzei Shava, and that is. We'll see later from the word shvi. So therefore, you have to do the same kind of shofar on Yovel as used on Rosh Hashana, and it should be straight. And the key for key and the brachas, just like in Rosh Hashanah, we daven musaf in 9 brachas. So too on Rosh Hashanah, on Yovel, we daven musaf in 9 brachas. That's the Tanakhama. Comes along Rabbi Yehuda and he says, Rabbi Yehuda says, Berosh Hashanah, I disagree. I hold Berosh Hashanah taking mishas charim. Rabbi Yehuda said that Rosh Hashanah, I say not you should go on these mountain goats that are straight. I say that in Rosh Hashanah it should be it should be the male ram. I agree with you that on Yovel it could be these mountain goats, but on Rosh Hashanah it should be. In other words, I believe there's no nexus, at least in this respect, between Yom Kippur, between Yovel, which is done on Yom Kippur, and Rosh Hashanah. It's two different concepts altogether, and therefore you have one kind of shofar on Rosh Hashanah, which is the ram, and on Yovel that's when you have this mountain goat and straight. Comes along Rabbi Levi. So I have two opinions: whether there's a Gzei Shava between Rosh Hashanah and Yovel, and what kind of shofar you should use for Rosh Hashanah versus Yovel. Is the same or not? Tanakh holds the same, and they're both from a mountain goat and should be straight. Rabbi Yehuda says no, there's a difference in Rosh Hashanah, and Rosh Hashanah should be from a ram, and Yom Kippur is from the mountain goats. Amar Rabbi Levi, mitzvah shel Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim b'kfufin. I hold like Rabbi Yehuda that on Rosh Hashanah we should use a ram, the horn of a ram, and it should be bent. Not like the Tanakhama that says it should be straight, but Rabbi Yehuda says Rosh Hashanah should be bent. But I also disagree with him, and I hold that Yom Kippur, it shouldn't be the mountain going straight. I hold that Yom Kippur, it should also be a ram, and it should be bent. Bishop Kol Hashana, and the rest of the year, b'pshutim. The rest of the year, you use the straight ones. Says how can that be? It says clearly on Mishnah that the shofar is Hashanah shall yal pashut. The Mishnah clearly says it should be from a mountain goat, and the Mishnah says it should be straight. How can you come along and say it should be a ram, it should be bent? So he said, well, no problem. Rabbi Levi will follow Rabbi Yehuda. Hudam Tana the Brayse. Rabbi Yehuda says, Shoshana, you taking Mishas Charim. Shoshana, you used a ram, but our Mishnah doesn't say, straight or bent. And the Brayse adds kifufin, that it should be on Rosh Hashanah, we should use the horn of a ram, and it should be bent. Will be Yovelis and Yovel b'shel Yalim. And Yovel, that's when you have a mountain goat and straight. Says the Gemara. So it seems clearly from here, Levi Paskins like Rabbi Yehuda. Let him just say outright, just say the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, no. I would have thought, I would have thought that we follow Rabbi Yehuda in every way. That there's a disconnect between Yovel and Rosh Hashana. Rosh Hashana, we have to have a ram and bent. On Yovel, we have a mountain goat and straight. That's what I would have thought. If he would have just said openly, we pass like Rabbi Yehuda, but it's not correct. Kamash Milan comes to tell you, no, I hold like a Tanakhama that Yovel has the same din, Yom Kippur has the same din as Rosh Hashanah. But I hold like Rabbi Yehuda that Rosh Hashanah should be a bent shofar, and it should be from a ram. So what is the machlekes here? Why the Tanakhama says that Rosh Hashanah should be a straight shofar, in contrast to a tinus, and why does Rabbi Yehuda say no? Rosh Hashanah should be a bent shofar as well. What's going on here? Yom Kippur, Yovel is different. That could be straight, but not on Rosh Hashanah. Mike made an argument. Marsava, one opinion is Rosh Hashanah by Rosh Hashanah, kama dechayev inish daitet feimali. The more a person feels humbled and subdued, the better it is. And therefore, Rosh Hashanah it should be a bent shofar. The way Rashi learns is physically, you're supposed to be bending down and looking at the floor. Others say it means psychologically in your mind. You're supposed to be humbled. You're asking the Eibishter for forgiveness because you're being judged. So therefore it should be bent. That's like a manifestation of my feelings at that moment, that I feel very humble before the eyes of the Eibishter. But on Yom Kippur, where the whole purpose is to proclaim a proclamation of freedom, Kama the poshet in his daitet fei. But on Yom Kippur, the more a person is upright, that's what it is. Freedom. What's freedom? You can hold your heads high. So therefore, you should be straight. However, Omar, the other one holds The Rosh Hashana kama the poshet in his tray and daita tray. On Rosh Hashana, the more poshet, the straighter. The word poshet here means straight. No chachmas. Don't hide behind anything. Don't try to delude yourself that every aveda you did you have a good excuse. Be straight and honest with the Rebbeinu Shalom. All the aveda that you did, klap al chet, and do it right. So therefore, the Tanakama holds on Rosh Hashana should be a straight shofar. Again, like a mirror image of how we should be behaving. It should be very straight. But tiniest, when it comes to tiniest, kama the kaif in his dieted female. When it comes to tiniest, the more subdued you are, the better it is, because we're asking the Eibush to make it rain. So therefore, it should be a bit more subdued. Let's just do a few lines more in the Gemara. Then we mentioned that the shofar on the Beis Hamikdash on Rosh Hashanah, piv metzupaza, it was coated with gold. Ask the Gemara, how can that be? But Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, tzipayuzav, the mokam anacha pipasul. If you coat a coating of gold around the place where you're supposed to put your mouth on the shofar, it is possible, because then you're not blowing a shofar, you're blowing a piece of gold. Says the Gemara, and shalei mokam anacha piv kosher. But if you have gold further up the shofar, it doesn't affect the sound, it's kosher. Abai says, well, kitnan nami masnisin. When our Mishnah says about this gold, now we're talking about to coat the gold right in the rim where you place your mouth. We're talking about in the middle of the shofar, make it look, to embroider it, to make it look nice, but not to actually affect the blowing of the shofar. Okay, continue tomorrow in Mitzvah Hashem.